this morning, this film was nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Picture. Please give a warm welcome to actor John Magaro, one of my favorite actors, and to writer-director Tim Fehlbaum.
Thank you so much. That's the first standing ovation we had ever.
It's for you.
No, thank you so much.
Who do you think it's for?
No, that is really kind of you.
I think it's for this background. This is beautiful. Look at that.
Thank you both for being here, and
Thank
congratulations.
you for having us.
Also
And congratulations on the nomination this morning.
Yeah, that was all. Thank you.
I think all of you should see the video of Tim watching the nominations at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
It's like a 3-act play. I mean, like Chekhov, 4-act play. Chekhov could have written. The despair to triumph is amazing. I love it.
Well deserved.
Yeah, we just want to say, sorry, you didn't even get to ask a question
No,
yet.
no. It's your show.
It's quite the journey we had with the movie in general. When we started it, I would have never thought that I would be here one day showing this movie here and even talking about the nomination. We premiered in Venice at the film festival. Yeah, this sounds fancy, but now it was actually a sidebar in Venice. And in reality,
Then he went to Telluride.
Yeah, it was even a sidebar to the sidebar.
No, it wasn't.
No,
was in Croatia.
It was Orizzonti Extra. So Orizzonti is fancy, but Orizzonti Extra is like so. But now it got picked up, and I'm really grateful to have this support by Paramount. And now this morning is like, yeah, that was wonderful.
Well deserved.
Yes.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
John, I'm going to start with you because I was when I first saw the film, I was blown away by the scene towards the end with you and Marianne, and it struck me. And I saw it a second time just now, that during this whole 90 minutes, you don't have the time to think about repercussions. You're constantly just making decisions and reacting. But in that moment with Marianne, where she's telling you about how the effect of what just happened and the moral dilemmas and the repercussions, and then it sinks on you. Tell us about that scene and that moment.
I mean, I think we both can address that. That scene, so there are obviously there are a few scenes in this that are really impactful, right? And that's obviously one of them. That's the entire German experience in that scene, right? Like how we feel. We tried to get the Olympics right. We tried to reinvent ourselves for the world after 36 when Hitler fucked it all up. And now we fucked it all up again. So I think there was a sensitivity about that scene. And in fact, we shot it once before. We had shot it in the hallway outside the control room. And I think all of us agreed, right, that it just wasn't quite right. So we, fortunately, because we had some time, we didn't have much time. This is an indie, so there's never much time. But we came back to it. And there was a really healthy and productive discussion between Tim, Leonie, and myself to find the right language of that scene. I think Leonie and I felt maybe we were too on the nose about what it meant for Germany and what it meant for that generation of Germans.
I'm not German, by the way. I'm Swiss.
He's Swiss. He's Swiss, by the way.
I just want to make it clear here.
He's keeping neutral, ladies and gentlemen. So we had to really figure it out. But because Tim was a collaborator and not just like some dictator, we got it. And we figured that out, and it was a kind of a wonderful experience to sort it out. You can speak more to it, obviously, because, yeah. Okay.
No, but John, I also was struck by the fact that what I mentioned is for 90 minutes, you don't have as an actor and as the character, you don't have time to think about repercussions and about moral dilemmas, et cetera, but it's that moment that it must have sunk in.
I mean, I think it's that moment. It's the moment in Rune's office. it's, you know, you get a promotion, but at what cost? At what cost? Like, lives are lost. There's not many industries where you can get a promotion when people die, and journalism is one of them. But the thing is, Jeff told us, Jeff Mason, the real Jeff Mason, who I talked to a lot, he told us they didn't think about anything during the 22 hours of broadcast. It was do your job, it was stay focused, leave emotionality out of it. And in fact, it's almost, we kind of play the hand of drama of realization in those two scenes, because if you talk to Jeff, he wouldn't say it wasn't until he got back to the hotel that him and Don Ohlmeyer, his colleague, cried, and the consequences of what they did washed over them. So I think those two scenes are our slight version of showing the impact on Jeff. Yeah.
Tim, I'm obsessed with your film. It's so cinematic, the spatial restrictions of having 90 minutes of us, you know, the urgency, the immediacy. But I do understand that that wasn't the original plan, that you originally were thinking about different perspectives, a bigger scope. How did you arrive into this chamber play that you do on screen?
Yeah, I first learned about this day in Munich and what happened when I saw a documentary that I'm sure a lot of people here in the audience have seen. You've seen it, obviously.
Yeah,
It's
McDonald,
one day, yeah,
James McDonald.
Kevin McDonald.
Kevin McDonald.
One Day in September. And I saw this as a teenager in a theater, and it had a huge impact on me, and it never left me in a way. And then I studied in Munich in the film school. And in Munich, even after all these years, this story is still very present. These housings are today student housings. So we'd also shot a lot of student movies there, and you would always know that this is this building where the tragedy happened and where this iconic, it's maybe weird to say in that tragic context, but that this well-known picture of the masked person on the balcony has been taken. And yeah, I've been interested in that, and after my two previous movies, I just want to quickly say that two producers are here. John Palmer, can you please quickly stand up to me, because they were, and Thomas Wöpke from Germany. He's not
He
here.
always hides somewhere.
Yeah.
Every time we do these things, he's... Oh, there he is. He's way in the back.
Yeah. No, I just want to say that this is our extremely creative producers that were in the hope. I think actually they should be here, because we, in a way, in that group, directed the movie. It was a really extremely collaborative cooperation, and we were all doing this together from the very beginning on. And we just generally were researching about that day. And I did, my two previous movies were in a complete different direction. Yeah, this is the best one so far, by the way, so you came for the right one. But I was more in sci-fi, post-apocalyptic direction. And I knew if I want to approach something like this, as such a story which is so important, that we have to do as much research as possible. And during that, and originally, as you say, we planned to tell it from different perspectives. That was the idea. But during that research, we more and more found out what an important role the media played on that day. And then it was a conversation that we had with Jeffrey Mason, who John just mentioned. That's a character he plays in the movie. And he was there as working as a 20-year-old rookie for ABC Sports, and experienced that. And listening to his story of what they experienced in the control room during this 22-hour marathon of broadcasting, that initially sparked the idea, maybe we can tell it entirely from that perspective. And I immediately found this interesting for two reasons. One is from a filmmaker's point of view, what you just mentioned also, how I found it an interesting challenge. How can I tell a story that actually takes place in one room only? I found this an interesting concept. I personally, like almost in a Hitchcockian sense, you know, that he was also fascinated with that idea. He wanted to tell a movie entirely in a phone booth. And the other one is that, of course, as someone who's working in the media myself, I was more interested. It's something that I could connect more, or I felt more also allowed in a way to tell a story about than maybe of other aspects of that day. And also the nice side effect is we could do it for a fraction of the budget. So we didn't know also how to finance the other approach a little bit. But especially today, I'm really glad. I think it's a good example, I mean, of how often a restriction in budget can also lead to a more interesting approach, because you have to creatively come up with ideas.
One of the essential pieces is watching the real broadcast, the clips. When you were writing the script, you didn't know if you were going to get the rights to having all the actual clips.
Yeah, you're well informed.
Can you tell us about arriving to that?
Yeah,
I mean, I gotta. I'm just, because when I got the script, when it was sent to me, it really hinged in so many ways on Jim McKay. And Jim McKay, like, if you're gonna put this ensemble up for any sort of ensemble,
McKay, guys, is the actual ABC Sports broadcaster.
that's the guy you guys all saw, yeah. If you're gonna put this thing up for like ensemble recognition or whatever, Jim McKay should be on that fucking list. Like, let's grow up. Like, come on. And when I read the script, I didn't know how this exists without that footage. But this guy, and Moritz, our other writer, had the courage to write it that way and knock every door down to make sure we got that footage. And I think that shows the tenacious nature of our producers and Tim.
No, but to me it was just like we recreated a lot of the footage also in the village. That is not all archival footage. For example, we decided that we don't want to, out of respect, show anyone who really lost their life on that day, so we recreated that. But what we could never recreate is, as John says, is like the human element of Jim McKay. And it was not, Thomas could talk more about it, it was really not easy to get the copyrights. But for me, I even said it like in an extreme way. I said, like, if we don't get McKay, we don't have to do the movie at all. And it was, yeah, we had the support of Jeffrey Mason, and then there was one lucky incident that John and I, we went to a lot of control rooms of sports.
The research.
Exactly, of sports broadcasts. And we had one day, on one Sunday, we went to CBS Sports, which was then, the CEO of CBS Sports was Sean McManus. That's the son of Jim McKay. Yes, and he happened to be there. And I saw him in the hallway, and I said, okay, this is my chance. I have to walk up to him. And I walk up to him and said, look, I'm a filmmaker from Europe. I have a project. Your father plays quite an important role in it. Can we talk? And he was kind enough, and told us also about his experience. He was there as a teenager also in Munich, yes. And then he helped us when getting the footage. And he saw it in New York. I was there for a screening when he could see it for the first time with his son. Yes, and that was really beautiful experience. After the movie, I could see him turn to his son. He said, "Your grandpa," and he's so proud of it. And that was the most beautiful.
But so Tim, it mentions this, and I haven't really said this before, but like, so I spent, after we went in there for a couple weeks, I continued at CBS Sunday Football for about a month and a half after it, so it was about 2 months total. Following, and Sean McManus was there every week. Like, he ran it, so he was always around. And the sense that he wanted this thing to be successful and, you know, stay true to his father, and that he was excited about it, was always present in him. And it was because of Jeff Mason and him that we got that footage, and it changed the entire game for the film.
John, I've seen you in the theater. You're such a terrific actor on stage. I was wondering the fact that this is a chamber play, but on screen. What was it like for you to have? I mean, because once you guys were shooting, everybody is on set at the same time in this contained space, and then on top of that, you're reacting to these clips that you're watching. You know, tell us about what was it like for you as an actor to work in this environment?
Well, there's two things there. The dynamic with Jim McKay and I, and also the other things that I'm reacting to on screen. Um, yeah, I mean, again, going back to the footage that we actually got because of Sean McManus and Jim McKay. I mean, that's like, this is an indie film, and our producers, again, John Palmer, Thomas, Philip, who's not here, they hunted down that clip and they made sure we got that live footage, and that's a testament to them. But beyond that, it's an ensemble piece, and it's top down. I mean, this is not just the principal actors. It's not just the supporting cast. It's the background cast. The background cast is there every single day with us. They have to be present. They have to rise to the challenge. Tim has this thing called wild style shooting, which is kind of influenced on Barry Ackroyd and his relationship with Paul Greengrass. But it's this very loose kind of docu style where you never know if you're going to be on camera. So everyone has to be present all the time, and it becomes almost like a play. And fortunately, Peter, Ben, Leone, and I, as well as many of our supporting cast, come from a theater background, so we were ready to do that. It just makes you rise to a whole nother level as an actor. You have Jim McKay there, who's as authentic as possible, as real as it gets. And our marching orders from Tim were to be as authentic and real as possible. So I think we all felt a responsibility, not only to the victims, but to Jim McKay and everyone who was in that broadcast booth that day to just get it right. Mm-hmm. So that meant the research, that meant the collaboration, that meant all that stuff. And we got really lucky with a good cast. Yeah.
He mentioned the long takes with handheld cameras. Tell
Wild
us about the importance of that approach with the film.
Yeah, I think it's in a way essential, because the idea behind that was that Marcus Furter, DP, and I, we talked about that we want to cover it as if we would be a live broadcast team ourselves, or documentary team in that room, observing these people, observing the monitors. So we would just have long takes and have as much as possible of the technology working for real. So it seems like an easy thing, but it's not, especially since we wanted to have also the authentic technology from that time. Because for me, this film is also not just for gimmick reasons about technology, but also it's also the topic of the film is also in a way how technology has an influence on the media, and by that also has an influence on how we perceive the world, right? In a way, I think you're filming me here with your little camera, which is like this, and you can send it all around the world. Back then, we wanted also for today's audience to give a feeling on how back then the analog television world, TV world was. I'm personally fascinated by that world, but it goes beyond that. We wanted also everything to really work, so that we could, everything that's coming at the cast via these devices to happen in real, and we would just cover it in a way. As John said, I didn't invent this, so I stole this idea from that movie that I admire really a lot. That I'm sure also
the Paul Greengrass film.
Yes, I'm sure also a lot of people in the audience have seen it. United 93, where he recreated this situation with this air traffic controllers, and I learned it from watching the DVD with the director's, back then it was still DVD, with the director's commentary, which is, by the way, so sad. I think that you don't have that anymore. And he talked about that. He just recreated these hours on that, of what he learned, what happened in an air traffic control room, and just shot it. And that was the approach that we also had.
But tell me, getting very technical, the fact that you had to shoot at 24 frames per second to capture what we're watching on the screen.
Yes.
Why did you have to do 24 frames per second?
This is a very specific
That's
question.
A good question.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed.
Only one who's asked that.
Because that was actually a huge problem with the 24 and 25 frames and everything. I wasn't 100% involved. Is that the question that you mean?
Correct,
Yeah. Because you have this interlace with the monitors. It gets now really geeky, technical. But we wanted also that. We just, before we came here, we talked about, you mentioned
Correct. You
the
also
flickering.
added this flickering when the camera, when we're not seeing the videos, you're shooting John, and then there's this flickering of light.
Marcus.
Yeah, that was very subtle, and then we had a lot of discussions about this. Yeah, and I think it adds to the adrenaline, right? And we embraced,
it creates tension.
Yes, and also we embraced everything that in a way is a technical imperfection. You know, we also wanted focus pulls to be a little bit delayed. We wanted that feeling also, like everything should feel natural, and as if it would happen. Also the costume, the glasses, that was all with stains.
Smudged, yeah. You never, the glasses, it was very important to never wipe the glasses down. Like the handprints, the imperfections, the grease, the oils from your fingers, all that. I mean, the tactile nature of the entire, from Julian Wagner, our production designer, all the way down, it was always important to have that tactile 1972 quality. And he would never let me wipe my glasses, and it just became important. But all that stuff, and Marcus, with the way he approached it, it was just, there was a tremendous care. There was a tremendous care from every artisan on board, every department down, and maybe that's a German thing, but
again, I'm Swiss.
no, but most of our crew was German. It was a specificity that you don't see often on film nowadays.
Swiss are even more precise than the German.
I know. Thank God the entire crew wasn't Swiss.
You know, tell me, Tim. There are moments in the film that I find so rich that because of the contained space that and the vision that is so contained, we hear about things that happen in the background that we don't see or we hear about, but it leaves the audience for us to imagine what.
Yeah, I just figured if you have a strong cinematic concept like this, then you really have to go through with it. So I really, in a way also, I think this movie is also more about what you don't see than what you see. And I just visited these control rooms, and it is a little bit like this parallel world, and I'm really fascinated and have the highest respect of these people working in these rooms today. But it is also this parallel world, right? Almost with this monitors as the only window to the outside world. And in this case also, they were so close, but still they observed it always through the monitors.
Mm-hmm. John, tell me about the scene where you have to push that heavy equipment, and how difficult was it to shoot that?
Well, that was cutting edge equipment in 1972, and that was top of the line. It's funny. I mean, obviously, it's strange to us now as we're talking about. There's a camera right there, and you can just fit it in your hand, but. Yeah, I mean, it's cumbersome, and it's boxy, and it's difficult, but I always kept trying to remind myself that all the technology that these people had, and it's funny, we talk about this in Q&As, and we're kind of nostalgic about the analog technology, but that was cutting edge, especially the idea that they had access to a satellite in outer space. And they could broadcast this live to the entire world. That 900 million people were watching this in real time for the first time. This is something that, as we all watch today, the fella he was in Altoona, but you know, the guy who assassinated the guy in New York, we all watch that news break live on our phone, on our TV, on our computer. Something we take for granted now that was created on that day in Munich in 1972.
This was the first time that we had a live coverage of a terrorist attack.
Yep. From our research, yes, and I think the interesting thing is that in our movie also, it's not a bunch of experienced news people that are covering it, but it was actually sports people that had to make that switch from reporting to sports to the, from the Olympics to the crisis. And I want to add to that what you said, the fact that it was live, these Olympics were, even before the tragedy happened, they were a turning point in media history, because Germany, as John just said, it was the first Olympics on German soil since '36, and they wanted to send out this new image of the liberal Germany out to the world. They almost wanted to have a hippie-esque vibe in that Olympic village covered with this tower cam. And it was the first time that they could globally broadcast the Olympics live. And it was the first time that everything was designed for optimal TV coverage. And then suddenly this whole apparatus switched from reporting on these serene games, as they called it, to this tragedy.
John, I think I mentioned to you before, your performance is one of my favorite of this year.
My God,
such
thank
a
you.
powerful performance. And there's one particular moment that I'll never forget. Is the moment where Marianne has to, where you find out that the victims actually died, and your reaction is full of shock. And I mean, it's so complex, your reaction. Can you walk us through that moment and your acting in it?
Oh my God. I mean, those kind of moments, the only way to approach them is from the most deep core place. If you can analyze them, then I don't think you were ever present in the moment. I mean, I by that point, when we shot that scene, we had shot most of the movie. So the expectations of what I had developed as Jeff, as that character, and the hanging on to needing to have a win, and needing to advance my career, and needing to be right, especially after he betrayed his mentor in Marvin Bader. He betrays him. He leaves him behind. Leaves everything he was taught behind. I mean, it's a very, like, Shakespearean almost a dilemma that Jeff is in. You know, he's being pulled in two directions between his mentor, Marv, who is kind of the pure voice, and then you have Rune, who is this voice of success and potential and money, ultimately. And he sacrifices that, and then he's found out he's wrong. But also in the humanity of him, he's wanting to hang on to anything he can to make sure it's right. So it's just, you know, I was given a script by Tim and Moritz, our other writer, that found a kind of penultimate moment where he gets to express that. For me, it's not about analyzing it, it's about living it. And that's all I could do on that day was live that trauma of that moment. And, you know, us sickos as actors, we like to go through those dramatic things. So
You can tell we got the nomination this morning. Like, he's talking about Shakespeare, I'm talking about Hitchcock. We get a little bit ahead of ourselves. So we got
No, and you
group
also
us in with those people.
yeah, and you also mentioned Paul Greengrass. I'm surprised you
That's
haven't.
up the line. Shakespeare.
Yeah, I'm surprised you
Hitchcock,
haven't.
Greengrass.
What about All the President's Men? You haven't brought that up.
Oh,
Want to talk about that now?
Yeah,
okay, here we go.
okay.
No, All the President's Men, of course, but I also would mention Sidney Lumet's The Network.
Network.
Well, we've been going around with the conversation now.
12 Angry Men.
Yeah, that
you know, in a
too,
contained
yeah.
space.
You're
You're talking to a
Das
film
Boot.
geek
He
here.
talks about Das Boot a lot. There we go.
Boot is when Americans try
Submarine,
to say
you know.
Das Boot, the Peterson movie by.
Sorry.
Okay, let's rein this in. The importance of casting American actors like Peter Sarsgaard and John Magaro, but then you bring in Leonie Bressish?
Finish.
Yeah, you know, this international cast, the importance from your vantage point to...
Yeah, it was like, for us, of course, even though this movie takes place in Germany, it's of course in a way an American perspective. And let's say in Germany, I'm a more or less established name, so I could approach an actress like Leonie Benesch, and she would actually.
Brilliant.
It
You
was-
guys saw her in the Teacher's
Oh my
Lounge.
God, so good.
But internationally, I'm not. So and for us, like, we had this idea, of course, I wanted to have it at this level of talent that we can have in front of the camera. And this was only because John Palmer and John Wildermuth with Sean Penn were on board and helped us approach this kind of talent. Let's say it helped. If you had an email before sent out as a term production, we didn't often get a reply from these agencies or so. If you say a film produced by Sean Penn, comes much faster. And I just want to say, because he's also, especially of course in the actors world, a very, very well respected name.
Yeah, yeah. So last question to the two of you. What is it that you want the audience to take away from this film?
Look, I also want to say, of course, that this movie is being released in a time where, unfortunately, this conflict has escalated so tragically again. Mm-hmm. And we finished the movie before that happened. And our movie is more about what we want to do for the audience. And, of course, the audience will also see it in that context, I think. But we want to provide a way to engage with questions about our complex media environment and how we consume the news today, and through that historical lens. That was our idea.
John?
Yeah, I mean, so we live in a world, I mean, we all know, there's 24-hour news cycle, right? And things are thrown in front of us and taken away from us so quickly. And we can talk about what's happening in the Middle East right now, but as I mentioned before, there's already something new on the headlines every day, and tomorrow there'll be something new. What happened on September 5, although it was with good intentions and an innocence, it created kind of a monster, because there was a realization that ratings are the ultimate. And it's easier to achieve ratings at the expense of tragedy and apologize for it after. And I think this is a cycle that has continued today. What I hope is that going back in time to this nostalgic, kind of innocent view of how things were forever changed, that people, hopefully they can leave their, preconceived notions behind and their camps behind and watch this objectively and walk out maybe questioning their own consumption of tragedy in the media currently. I know I've become desensitized to it. It's so easy to watch someone being pulled out of rubble in the Middle East and then click onto a McDonald's ad and move on with your life. And I think if we continue down this path, there will be no solutions for these geopolitical crises throughout the world, or these psychological crises here at home. So I hope people will watch this and reevaluate their own consumption, because that's the only way this is going to change. And that's my hope.
Well, thank you. Well, extremely well said. What a great honor to have you here, especially on the eve of your evening after your nomination.
Day today. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
No, I really thank everybody for coming. Again, it's so nice to see such a full cinema,
guys.
and thanks to the Santa Barbara Film Society for the invitation. And it's really there was a first standing ovation. I hope that was not only the nomination.
No.
Thank you.
We love your film.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the great questions and the great research you did.
Thank you. Spread the word, everybody.